You're probably wondering how we're going to come up with topics for this episode. Well, guess what? We don't have to. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Ink Gunner. That's right. We don't have to come up with topics because we asked you for the topics. That's right. This is a mailbag episode. Mailbag. Mail's here. I think it's funny that we call it a mailbag because like it harkens to a time of snail mail, of actually receiving mail. And mail used to be a nice thing to get, right? And so you would get excited. Oh, my mail's coming. But now, what do you get in the mail? Bills, spam kind of stuff, offers for a new credit card to swap out your old credit card. Transfer your balance from that credit card to this credit card, and then your balance could be on this one. We'll jack up those rates, and then you can transfer to another one. That has to be one of the weirdest things we've created in society, the balance transfer credit card to credit card thing. Like, there are literally websites that will tell you which credit card to open next to move your balance to them to get their intro offer before their APR expires. Anyway, just a thought that I had because we said mailbag. That's where my head's at this morning. Only had one coffee, but we're gonna cover a wide range of topics sent by you, from you to us in Discord and over on the internet on Twitter. And I do want to apologize for people that are Facebook users or Instagram users or TikTok users or just not social media people. I don't have a better way to ask for questions than that. So I hope the questions sort of get you there one way or the other. But if you want to get a question to us, you can always email us, contact@arsenalvisionpodcast.com. Good way to get in touch in general. And I want to say thanks to our patrons who sent in some great questions, and thanks to the non-patrons alike. Just really happy to have you here. I know a lot of us right now dealing with the loss of football this weekend. And I know many of you are certainly dealing with the loss of the Queen, of course, and grieving that. But I think what we are all wondering is how this stoppage is going to impact the season going forward. So there's some questions about that we'll get to, but I want to start with some World Cup related stuff. And I'm going to do that with Tim. You can find him on Twitter at Stillberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
And Paul, you can find him on Twitter at Pause My Pants. Hello, Pause.
Woohoo.
It's funny. We start the pod and I just start talking. And as I'm talking, I'm like, do I have anything I need to get to? Do I have any news or business? Like you'd think at this point I would write down, here are the couple key things you need to mention in the intro. And the thing people may not know is,
indeed,
we'd probably be professional, but like we don't actually like edit this podcast. So it is really just push the button that says record and hope the stuff comes out. And if it doesn't, the belief is that you will tolerate us, forgive us, and continue to listen to us. And we do love you for doing that. We're working on some live events on two sides of the pond and around the world and everywhere. So we'll have news about that as it breaks. But for now, Tim, I want to start with you because this news came out recently and you and I have been chatting about it behind the scenes from Davim Gerter, Dave M_GTR on the Discord. Tim's thoughts on Martinelli not in the Brazil squad. I was surprised by this.
Yeah. So people will probably have seen that all of our Gabriel cubed, as it were, trio have not made the Brazil squad. So just by way of summary, for Gabriel Jesus, that is not a problem. He is basically on the plane. He won't start. Brazil's front three is set. So they play Neymar through the middle. They play Rafinha to the right of him and Vinicius Junior to the left. So basically it's all about who else is going to go in terms of forwards. And they are stacked to the absolute gills, particularly with wide forwards. But Gabriel Jesus is going to go, not least because he can play through the centre. And it's Firmino who is probably not going to go. That's the kind of the level of depth we're talking about. Now, Gabriel Magalhães, he's probably going to be okay. He looks like he's going to go as the fourth choice centre half. And basically what they want to do, Brazil, is they want to bring 5 centre halves. So they're having a look at a couple of other guys to see who the fifth one's going to be. So I think for those two, this is not a problem. For Martinelli, I mean, he's definitely not a lock in the squad. Now, he's been in the last 3 or 4. So it could be that basically Chite is kind of saying, look, I've seen all I need to see from Martinelli. I can see how you're playing, with Jesus. I'm going to have a look at some other guys. Or it could be, and that's still, could be bad news if those other guys impress. Or it could just be a kind of, you're not in the squad because you're not quite there and it's the last squad before the World Cup. And if that's the case, then he'll have to hope for an injury. So the other guys who are basically in there, so you've got the 3 I mentioned and Gabriel Jesus, then you've got Anthony, who's obviously a threat for Martinelli's place.
Yep.
Now, I know people will kind of say, oh, he's only just joined Man United and all of that, but he has been in the last few Brazil squads. Chite likes him a lot. He's quite analogous to Rafinha as well on the right, so there's that kind of continuity there. Then there's Richarlison, obviously, as well. And so, again, he's a threat for Martinelli's pace because he's a very, very similar type of player to Martinelli. And then there's Roberto Firmino, who, again, he's in this squad. And I think for him, this is you've got to do something to get in the squad. And then there's a young striker at Flamengo, well, youngish striker at Flamengo called Pedro, who's playing really, really well in Brazil at the moment. But so that they've got all of these attackers, and basically two of them are going to have to drop out. So Martinelli's competition is very much with Antony and with Richarlison, and those two guys are in this squad. And probably, if you're discounting Firmino, probably one of those three is going to come out. So if Martinelli basically has had his last chance to impress in a Brazil squad, I think the only other caveat, I guess, is that Chite was at the Fulham game a few weeks ago. He obviously has an incredibly strong relationship with Edu. They are more than just former work colleagues. They are very, very good friends as well. In fact, when Chite took the Brazil squad job, he insisted that Edu come with him because they worked together at Corinthians. That was one of his conditions for employment. So they're incredibly close. And obviously, like, Edu's just come out of that setup. He knows everyone in there. So, there's definitely been a conversation at that game, and Chite probably had the conversation with the players at that game and probably said then, look, you guys aren't going to be in the next squad. And yeah, I imagine for Gabriel Jesus, that was a very quick conversation. With Gabriel Magalhaes, probably a quickish conversation. For Martinelli, but we always knew he would be on the cusp just because of the depth that they've got. And I'd just urge Arsenal fans not to celebrate someone like Martinelli not going to the World Cup, because I promise you, nothing means more to these guys. Nothing. Like, the World Cup means everything to every player, I think, but for Brazilians, it's times 10. I promise you, there is nothing that any of them will ever do in any club shirt that will mean more to them, even close, as much as going to the World Cup with Brazil. It is, if you're talking about Brazilian footballers' Maslow triangle, that is way up the top, all on its own. So if Martinelli doesn't go to the World Cup, he will be devastated. He will be absolutely devastated. And we'll have to deal with the fallout from that. Personally, I'd much rather he went. Frankly, he probably wouldn't play that many minutes anyway. So, like, from a pure fitness point of view, I don't think it would be a huge deal. I think it's far, far, far more preferable for Arsenal that he goes, he's happy, and maybe he doesn't play very much, but maybe he's part of a squad that wins the World Cup or goes close.
Yeah, there's definitely the selfish part of us as Arsenal fans that can see Martinelli, Gabriel Magalhaes, even Gabriel Jesus, as far-fetched as that is, I believe, not going to the World Cup is a great thing for our season. But it would be, I think, a bad thing for our long-term capability of keeping players that we care about. They want to be somewhere where their international career can be nurtured, certainly. I do think with Edu they're in a good place. They're at a big club. If we finish where we think we want to finish and they're playing well, I do think they'll get the call-ups. Interesting side note, my Maslow's hierarchy of needs is just a triangle with pizza and bourbon in it. That's it. That's the whole triangle. So I got a question for you, Paul, and I want to read both of them because I think it's a great study in how the way you ask a question can lead to how people are inclined to view you and view the question itself. And you can guess which one is more the way I would ask a question. But so Emile A239 on Discord says, are we watching the super slow motion derailment of ESR's Arsenal career? He's the oldest of our peers, Saka and Martinelli, and is taking steps backwards as they step forwards. Now, I will read you Sandman at FI Sandman on Twitter asking the question, fitness issues aside, how do we maximize ESR's contribution while Martinelli is playing well? It feels like we're losing him from the group a bit and not sure cup minutes are enough given how big a role he had last season. They are both asking the same question, but dare I say it, they have asked it in slightly different ways. I do think both questions are driving at the same thing. How do we keep ESR in the group? How do we maximize his Arsenal career in light of what's happening with his peers within his sort of age group and some fitness concerns as well?
Yeah. So one of the things that squad depth should do for us is to take the pressure off players being played when we need them rather than when they need to get the minutes. Smith Rowe came on recently. I don't know what he had, maybe 20 minutes, and then in the warm down, aggravated an ongoing problem. So it's obviously still on the bubble in terms of working through that. This may not be the season for him, is the reality.
Yeah.
On the other hand, late in the season, he could play critical minutes. I mean, things turn around so quickly in football. Eddie Nketiah, we'd made our peace with him. 10 games to go in the season, suddenly he starts to play a more and more critical role. Football changes so quickly. So, fundamentally, he's a guy with talent. I think we all see what he brings. Is he an automatic starter for most games, or is a guy who starts some games and has critical contributions in other games using his superpowers? That's dependent on him and how he evolves his game and how he broadens what he can do. Hopefully what he's doing is he's taken this time to think through his game, to think through how he plays his football, what more he can do. He can turn it into a positive, but obviously the greater positive would be playing games, minutes. He's still very, very young. I just Googled it. July is his birthday. He's 22. He's a guy we want goals out of, and he's reaching the age. He had a pretty good season last year for coming on and scoring goals. He's reaching the age in the second half of this season and next season where he should be contributing on a regular basis, providing those goals. They can't all be starters. Martinelli's having an absolute flyer. And from an Arsenal selfish point of view, we need Smith Rowe to come in this year and play important minutes, important contributions, step in at important times. But maybe we don't, at this point, need both of them to be fully fit, raring to go, and that particular headache. There is a way that there's obviously what you want is the guy fully fit and raring to go and charge. But part of the reason you want two guys in every position is competition. Martinelli has all the competition in the world he needs as he looks out across the other Brazilians trying to get into that squad. Of course, as Tim talks about, it might be the headache after the honeymoon that's a little more problematic for him. But the really competitive guys at the top level are always competing with players. They're just not in their own team. They're looking across what's going across the league, who scored what kind of a goal. Did Thierry Henry need a player to compete with him week in, week out? I don't think he did. He was competing with every other top player who was trying to do the things he did. It does amaze me how we've turned a corner from the players we used to have at Arsenal who had this kind of ongoing injury thing. It seems like sports science has taken us to a whole different place, and I'm hopeful Smith Rowe can get there. But you go back and I don't need to go in depth, but you can mention a few names. Abu Diaby was doing the rounds this week, and they showed one or two of his absolutely incredible games. We'll never know what kind of a player that he could or couldn't have been. Your Ramseys, your Wilsheres, and you're like, thank God that's such a rare occurrence for us now these days. Even Santi, who I always feel was around for most of his tenure, got critical injuries at critical times for us. it's like the Greek gods. I'm reading some stuff on it at the moment, and it just seems like the Greek gods always used to get involved and take somebody out when he was doing too well. And it was like they spent their time focusing on us in the Premier League, just taking out our heroes, our Achilles,
Ramsey, Wilshere, Van Persie for a while, Diaby, Santi Cazorla. Yeah, well,
you name them, Fabregas, blah blah
yeah,
blah.
not quite so bad, but yeah.
What? Fabregas?
Injury wise, no, he was.
Oh
fine.
yeah,
he played.
Tim, help me here.
He had a couple of years where he had like hamstring problems.
Yeah,
pretty consistently.
He was on and off, in and out. Now we certainly were overplaying him at the same time. Was half the problem with Fabregas. He was like,
I put a video into the Discord the other night. There's a video on YouTube, Hector Bellerin, fastest player in the world, but it's actually just a video of his skills and tricks and stuff. And like you watch the video, you can think he's a terrible player now. You're totally entirely entitled to that opinion. You can not like him. You can like whatever. It's not that point. It's the point that I think we forget how special that player was too. And we did go through a period of that with a lot of players. Tim, you wanted to add?
I can't let that go, Elliot. Hector, Troy, the Greek gods.
Yeah, nailed it.
Well done.
Yeah, perfect. I brought it all together without saying it, but then you felt you had to say it. See, I trust the listener to make the connection of Hector and Troy. But
bunch of dumbos.
That's why you know what his mug says. Okay, hey Tim, you wanted to add on Smith Rowe? I'm not sure where we are in the Smith Rowe conversation anymore, but please feel free to add on it.
Just a little bit, because I'm glad that Paul mentioned Eddie Nketiah there as well, and I think something we were kind of driving at in a previous pod was that Eddie Nketiah might have taught some of us something about being quick to write players off, and actually I think Eddie has a real kind of role as like I guess like as a figure of aspiration again for someone like Smith Rowe, for someone like Reece Nelson, for example. Reece Nelson, like at the moment, he looks like he's got one foot out the door, but so did Eddie this time last year. I just wanted to talk up. I just wanted to talk up like Eddie's role as a kind of, well, he did it. He pulled himself back in. So I just wanted to make that point.
Ironically, it was Eddie and Sambi who sat around that table talking about Eddie saying, what are you bitching about? None of us are getting any minutes.
Let's do a quick hitter, and then I'm going to come back to you, Tim. I like to get some quick hitter ones in here so that we answer more questions, because we average, I think, I'd say a nice pace, 15 minutes per question, roughly, is usually our pace here. Tim, quick hitter. We're playing Spurs today. What's your preferred back four?
Oh, good question. So I'd still go with Ben White at the moment at right back. And I'd definitely do Saliba. And the reason I'd do Saliba is because he's so strong at defending that channel. And obviously that's where Son does a lot of his attacking. And then I'd have Gabriel, and I would have Zinchenko instead of Tierney, just because I think you can dominate Tottenham through possession. The player they play on the right, I mean, Kulusevski is a really good player, Richarlison's a really good player, but more of their threats down the left. So I'm less kind of concerned about, we must have the best defender. I'd still go with Zinchenko, but I still want Saliba in there because of the way he defends that channel. And at the moment, I'd still just about go with Ben White over Tomiyasu, but that is difficult.
Paul, back four for Spurs today.
Tomiyasu, I think he looked great against a Europa League minnow, I will grant you, but holy fuck, and his switch passes to the other side, and like just his physicality and his height, we don't concede that penalty with Tomiyasu. Saliba, Gabriel, that's easy. Very tempted to think about Tierney, because I just think they'll get no fucking joy. The only thing is playing at home, which will be the next London derby. I might be 50-50 Zinchenko early on, but a very early sub for Tierney. But I'd almost go Tierney on that one, because I think we need a mentality that is strong, physical, absolute, and we based on the experiences of the last London derby, it's almost sending them a message, this is not the same team you're playing now, pal. Strong, physical, aggressive from the back, And you could always bring on Zinchenko a little later on, which I know is the flip move to dazzle and wow them.
It's tough, right? Because I think there is an interesting question to be asked about our defending, and there's one in here coming up, so I'm gonna ask it in just a moment. But I think I definitely go Zinchenko over Tierney with no ill will towards Tierney. Just more the point that it is going to be a game where we're going to dominate possession. That's what they're going to want us to do. And I think if you're going to do that, you need Tierney to get the most out of that possession. I would go Gabriel and Saliba, but I think I would break from you guys and give Cedric a chance just to prove that, last season was a fluke for sure. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I don't know if I'd go White or Tomiyasu. I think about what White did to Zaha, and that makes me say, why wouldn't I just play him in there and let him shut down Son? But the Son challenge is different. It's an off-the-ball movement, not an on-the-ball movement that I worry about with Son. And so then it's just a question of who you think can be better in that respect. And I have to admit, I'm not sure. So we'll come back.
For me, they just need a few chances. That's the problem with Spurs. And I say extinguish all hope with your back line, and you got the crowd behind you at home, and you got enough attacking threat. I would just put out the most. Use the term muscular. That's not really what I mean. The back line that extinguishes all hope.
It's interesting because, by the way, that question was from right on the money in the Discord, and Harrison Dalby at HWD_93 on Twitter says, would you like to see a back four of Tommy, White, Saliba, and Zinni? I think that has the potential to be our best back four. And I don't know. I mean, Tim, just staying on this for a second, I am of the opinion that people have underrated Gabriel Magalhaes. First of all, I know everybody hates Data. Data's the worst. We hate Data. The data on his passing just pops. He is a very important part of how we progress the ball. And if you rewatch games, you see it in ways that you maybe don't initially. I'll confess that there are times he has looked he sort of does the thing that Saka does. He'll have 2 moments in a game where he does something where like, oh, Gabriel again. And then the rest of the game is absolutely imperious. But because football is about moments, you sometimes remember those negative moments. And I've been guilty of that with Shaq, and I think people are guilty of that with Gabriel. But what do you think of that idea that it's his place that's most up for grabs, to use a famous expression?
Yeah, I just think the left-footed thing is really important. I really do, particularly when you've got like Zinchenko inverting so much. And I just think having the left-footed angle for those passes and for those triangles, I do think it's really important. I do think that I think I'd be fine with White and Saliba, don't get me wrong. In fact, if Gabriel got injured, that's what I'd want. I'd want White and Saliba in whichever way. Like I imagine Saliba would go to the left. I'd be fine with that. But I think you really need... I think Gabriel's left-footedness just gives him a little bit more of an edge, even if you think White and Saliba are better defenders, which, again, I'm not entirely convinced about. I do think Gabriel, and also I think Gabriel's just got qualities that are slightly different to our other defenders as well. I do kind of think it's more Gabriel +1 than anything else.
Yeah. Well, then let me stay with you for this. Me Rage at M1_RAG3, and it's me spelled MI. So my rage or me, I don't know. It's a perfect Twitter handle. Let's be honest. Says, do you think we've anything to worry about in terms of our defense? Even with the generational Saliba, his definition, we still seem to be conceding goals regularly. Why do you think that is? Is this a personnel issue or an adapting to the system issue? Why do we have a worry in defense?
I mean, maybe it's a difficult distinction to make because we're conceding stupid goals. They're not systemic. That's the thing. Like, we're not getting pulled apart. We're not getting picked apart. It's like someone scores from a corner, we give a stupid penalty away, or like our defender gets tackled on the edge of his own box. Like, those are the last 3 goals we've conceded have been like that. So there's kind of a part of you that's just like, well, that's more avoidable and that's not a systemic thing. But I am worried that with the regularity with which that is happening. But I also do kind of think that in all of those games nearly, we should have been out of sight before those things happened anyway. So I don't know. Like you, Elliot, I kind of think our defending is more about just not letting the other team have the ball. But I am concerned, and I think it's more of an overall thing. I am concerned about us giving up goals, particularly when we're not really under very much pressure. I do think that's something we have to sharpen up, and I don't know if the answer to that is that our defenders are having brain farts or that we're a bit unlucky or whatever. But it's definitely, if I were Arteta, right? It's I know, something I'd be talking about, definitely.
Yeah, I think we definitely have the ability to turn what should be very comfortable situations into uncomfortable situations. I think because of where we control the ball now, Paul, and because of the way we possess the ball so dominantly, the chances we concede are slightly different. They're not conceded from our low block. They're conceded in transition. And chances conceded in transition can feel more nervy, can make you look more exposed, more pulled apart, right? Because you have fewer defenders back there controlling the situation. This is where I think data can help. We have the second meanest defense behind only Manchester City in terms of expected goals allowed. And what that tells you is we've had a few big mix-ups, but we're not giving away lots of opportunities. And so I think I'd rather continue down the path we're going because on a game-by-game basis, we're not giving a lot of opportunities away. Like Manchester United were ruthless with the chances they had. We've been punished for some silly errors, but the style of play is not giving away a lot to the opposition. So is there a defensive issue there? I mean, or is it maybe a little bad luck or just a couple of boneheaded moments?
We're doing a high wire act is the reality. Literally, we have the third highest line defensively in the league. So there's all that space behind it. And anytime you blink, anytime you don't have pressure on the ball, I mean, think back to, what was the name of your man for Crystal Palace spraying the ball all over the pitch?
Joachim Andersen.
The defender. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like game after game, that's the opponent's tactic. We are to an extent dominant until we're not within games. And it's the moments you drop your guard or, Sambi's coming into the team and learning where to be and the other players are learning where to be with him when we press, when we don't press. So anytime you take your foot off the gas, there is a vulnerability there with the way we play. We're not going to play a different way. So like the whole, should we play so high? Should we sit a bit deeper? Like you can't do both. You can't pull it apart and drop your back line, but still have the boys up front pressing like crazy. And what's the midfield supposed to do? Drop back, push up, and like it is what it is. We're going to get a lot of offensive action, a lot of pressure, a lot of pressing, and we just got to learn how to do this. We didn't do this last season. Nothing like this extent. Nothing like as front-footed as out there. We are exposing ourselves to the elements here, and we're going to have to learn and pick our moments and realize anytime you drop the press, or you drop your positions, or you lose attention, or you don't have your man under pressure, you set off a chain of events. So, like, you see City getting done by stupid goals. When Liverpool are off the ball, you see them getting torn apart. Across the season, it pays off if you're good enough. I think we're good enough.
And just one more data point, just bear with me. So I told you we have the second meanest defense in expected goals. That lines up with shots. We're conceding fewer than 8 shots a game. The only team better is City, conceding just under 6. Then it's Liverpool, conceding 1 full shot more than us. And then you're down to teams like Brighton, Chelsea, conceding 10 plus shots per game. Spurs, everybody's darling, they concede 14.5 shots per game. United, 14.8 shots per game. And so if you're asking me, is the way we're defending the right way? Is it an issue? It is absolutely the right way. Because if you can defend in a manner that leads to the opposition getting fewer than 8 shots and having the second lowest expected goals in the league against you, again, maybe I'm over relying on data, but I think that is sustainable. That over time, suppressing shots and suppressing quality chances is a sustainable way to ensure that you don't concede a lot. So
My one
You know,
concern is that we're getting done through the middle a few times lately. Maybe I'm just a little scarred by the United game. People will say, "Oh, Sambi," and like obviously it's something to do with that, but I don't think it's all about him. It's a bit about us being overextended and maybe not knowing our
well,
relationships to Sambi. But we've got
well,
done through the middle in ways we haven't for some time.
Well, where you're definitely right. Look, if you concede 5 shots a game, but those 5 shots are from the penalty spot one-on-one with the keeper, that's not good either, right? So like
Yeah.
you can, you have to be a little bit mindful of that. Tim, I think we should switch back to Whiskers mode here. Well, we were sort of in Whiskers mode, to be fair. That was sort of a Whiskers mode. Several people are typing in the Discord. This is funny, by the way. If you're like, what is his name? So if you've ever used Discord, like if someone's typing a message, it'll say like, Jim is typing. Or it'll say like Bob is typing, or it'll say Bob and Jim is typing. But if tons of people are typing, it'll say several people are typing. And usually when that message is up there, things are going very badly in the Discord. Usually there's arguing, there's anger. What's going? Screw this! I hate you. The Discord's a beautiful place, but when several people are typing, that's how you know things are in trouble. And several people are typing. Tim asks, any concerns that Saka and Saliba have yet to announce contract extensions? When are they going to sign Dating?
Yeah, maybe. It does lead me to believe, like, I don't understand why they would have delayed those. And so with Saka, I kind of think it's not done, but it's nearly done. That's more what I think the messaging kind of says. Whereas with Saliba, there were some reports that it was done, but they were storing up the announcement till after deadline day. And then, like, deadline day came and went and there was no announcement. And yeah, I guess I don't really understand why that would happen. So I'm less concerned about Saka just because that sounds pretty close. Whereas Saliba, it feels a bit like a climb down from, it's done, they're just waiting to announce it. And now it's a bit like, well, surely that can't have been the case. So maybe that is a bit more of a worry, but we don't really have that much reporting on where that got to be honest. So yeah, I maybe I am a little bit worried about that one.
Yeah, I would say that as long as they haven't signed, the strength in the position shifts further and further towards them. And the likelihood that they may start to entertain at least thoughts or considerations about what their future might bring shifts, towards being more open-minded about options. I said this a while back. If I were Saka's agent, there's zero chance I would have let him sign a contract this summer. And the same is true of Saliba. And the reason is because I would have said, look, next summer, you really have a tremendous negotiating position for me to go get you the best possible deal. I know your goal is to stay at Arsenal. I know that's where you want to be. Let me do my job, Bukayo. Let me do my job, William. My job is to negotiate you the best deal you can get. And the best way I can do that for you and achieve the goals you've told me you want is if you give me next summer to do it. The other thing is, you could then say, and oh, by the way, we can just make sure things are going in the direction we want. We can just make sure this project's on the up. We can just make sure, there's not an accident. The club doesn't finish 8th again. The team doesn't finish 8th. And, it keeps our options open. We give ourselves a little bit of optionality. I know your stated goals are to stay here, but it lets me do the best for you. So if I'm his agent, I'm begging him to wait till next summer. So it wouldn't surprise me if that is the position they want to take. And that doesn't have to mean that he won't sign or he won't stay. But I don't know, Paul. I mean, like with Saka, I ultimately think he will stay and that it's just about negotiation, which is fair. These guys are negotiating for their career. With Saliba, I mean, he looks pretty happy now. He's got a great song. Everything's going great. I'm sure he's thrilled. He certainly talked a lot to the media about frustration. Maybe there's still some wounds that need to heal and rifts that need to be mended. I don't think it's a given that a generational talent center back is going to stay at an Arsenal that didn't always hold him close to their bosom. So like, yeah, I'm concerned, not like worried, but concerned. I don't know. Where are you on those two? I know with Saka, it's probably not even worth asking you because you think done, he's staying. It's going to be easy, no problem. But maybe with Saliba, do you have more of an open mind there?
That's about right. I have more of an open mind. I do think everything seems to be going rather well in that relationship that start of the season. Saliba won't be that much different to the Brazilians. It's for him right now. It's all about the World Cup. Like being slow on your contract negotiation as you lead up to the World Cup is probably a good way of making sure you stay in the manager's thoughts, and that he doesn't give you any reason. He doesn't like have 2 or 3 months you're not starting for your own good, because he's like, we want you to think about your game. He's not going to ask Saliba to think about his game before the World Cup. So there's a lot of pressure. I can't imagine what it's like being a manager leading up to the World Cup. With you look at your office door and there's like 3 guys there. There's Martinelli, there's Saliba, there's Ben White, and they're all coming into you because they have a concern about this or that or the other that impinges upon time and how they're being treated and how they're being used and whether they've been given the chance to shine. Are they getting the service? The way you're playing doesn't allow me to play the way I'd like to play to show my game to get in the World Cup squad. So generally we've been very good at getting the guys we want. When was the last time we lost a guy at Arsenal that we wanted to keep contract-wise of any profile? It's a decade. It's a fucking decade since we've lost somebody.
Can I ask you a question, though? When was the last time we would have cared? I know that sounds so cynical, but like, who's the last player that might have left us where there was genuine demand for him other places and we held on? I can't think of one.
Very fair.
By the way, again, I am not saying that to crap on the players we've had. It's just, if you really think about it, most of the players we've lost are guys that like left on a free or we paid delete. We were ready to part with. Like, I can't think of too many. We tried to keep. There was a market for them, and we held on. Like, it's been a long time since that's happened.
It's a decade.
Probably why we were 8th for a couple of seasons.
Yeah,
to be fair.
It's not since Fabregas, Nasri, Van Persie. There's nobody we've lost at any point.
No.
And I'm like, okay, you're at the table, you're rolling the dice, you keep getting 7s or whatever it is you get at the table. I don't know. Like, you're going to keep throwing for a while. You may not put all your money in the table, but you're going to keep playing till we'll get Saliba.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I'll say about that is there's going to be some heartbreak at some point, because the odds that Saliba and White and Martinelli and Saka and Smith Rowe and Gabriel Jesus all stay all their career and just never leave. Like, it's pretty far-fetched. And it's funny because some people listening to this podcast may honestly have started being an Arsenal fan after the era of losing all your favorites. There was a period there where every summer wasn't about who do we sign. It was about, can we keep the ones we love? Losing Cesc and losing Nasri and losing Adebayor and losing Van Persie. And, that was what summers were about. Hell, we lost Alex Song. We lost Alex Kleb. We lost Tommy Vermaelen. I mean, it was crazy the way players just left Arsenal. And so we haven't gone through that. If anything, we've held on to players longer than we should. And maybe some of that, to be fair, was Arsene Wenger's scars from the period of us being a selling club and finally deciding, screw this, we're not going to be a selling club. We're going to pay Theo more than he deserves. We're going to pay Ozil more than is fair. We're going to keep players. But it's coming. It's coming back to the time where Arsenal are going to have to make hard choices about cashing in on beloved players.
Yep.
I don't think that time is yet. Certainly, we're at the beginning of the cycle, not the end of the cycle. So that leads to a fixture. Did you have anything else to add on that, Tim, by the way, or is that just about cover it? Okay, perfect. Tim gave a nod, and because I can actually see him, you may not be in a medium where you can see, but I can see his lovely face and his head shaking and saying, no, move on. So you know what? We're going to get to the fixtures. But that gives me the chance to tell you, UEFA Champions League Soccer is streaming on Paramount Plus. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath exhilaration is underway with the biggest stars, top teams, and craziest fan bases across Europe. Watch every match from the group stage through the knockout rounds as Benzema and Real Madrid defend their titles against Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, PSG, Barcelona, and more in soccer's biggest club competition. So don't miss a single sweat-soaked second of regulation time, stoppage time, and extra time, and stream every match of the UEFA Champions League live exclusively on Paramount Plus. Note: please stream the Europa League because that's where Arsenal play, and that's the good competition. Okay, good. That gives me the chance to also say, if you want to watch the Europa League or the Champions League, the best way to do it is with beautifully shaved privates. Obviously, you're going to be sitting on the couch somewhere. You don't want to be chafing while you're sliding around in your seat to all the action. So it is time to get the Lawnmower 4.0. And I'm just going to tell you what it says here. It says, smooth sack summer is slowly coming to an end, fellas. I mean, they write it. I read it. I don't know. Is it my fault for reading it? They now say it's just in time for fresh ball fall. It's pretty gross. But honestly, look, I was just having this conversation the other day. I was out at a friend's house. We're talking about the Lawnmower 4.0, as I do. And they said they had nicked themselves quite badly in the shower just the other day using a razor. If you're not using this, you're using something and you're using something bad. So get the Lawnmower 4.0. Get the Performance Package 4.0. You will get the lawnmower. You'll get the weed whacker for ears and nose hair trimming. You'll get the deodorant, the toner, the Performance Boxer Briefs, which great for the gym, the Performance Boxer Briefs, because of where they have their how do you say pouch without saying pouch, and a travel bag to hold all your goodies. It is the best purpose-built device for what it is meant to do. Skin-safe technology is a critical part of it. It's wet dry, so it can go in the shower. Do it now. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. It's 20% off and free worldwide shipping with promo code manscaped.com, promo code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. Keep things smooth and fresh as we say sayonara to smooth ball summer, and enter fresh ball fall. I don't have a choice. I have to read that. Please forgive me. You know, by the way, that we have had a sponsor that's periodically on this podcast that I think all of us feel very passionate about, and it gives me a chance to talk about something really important, and that is mental health. It's absolutely essential as a society that we get better thinking about, talking about, and confronting mental health. It doesn't have to be crisis. It can be problem solving. It can be working on yourself to get better. Everybody knows going to the gym is important. Everybody knows eating right is important. And yet we ignore the most fundamental aspect of being successful as a human being, which is your mental health. And so BetterHelp is able to do that. BetterHelp sponsors this podcast, and we believe in BetterHelp because it provides a couple of really critical services: the ability to go online, to find a therapist that can give you the professional help you need, and you can find someone that meets the specific needs you're trying to address. So you may be able to find a specialist that you may not be able to find locally near you. You can do it with camera on or camera off, so you can have a video session or not a video session, whichever certainly you prefer. BetterHelp is professional licensed therapy, right? So there's someone for you. You can get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey and be meeting with someone in about 48 hours. It's less expensive than going to in-person therapy as well. So when you want to be a better problem solver, right, in your life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com. And again, that's not health, it's help. betterhelp.com/ArsenalVision, betterhelp.com/ArsenalVision to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/ArsenalVision. And last but not least, as we go long today, how do we always wrap up the promo section, the ad break with our friends at Indeed? And at this point, you know what? At home, how about I just take a deep breath for 30 seconds and you do the Indeed promo? You know it. You know about Instant Match. You know about virtual assessments. You know about virtual interviews. You know about all of them. And you know that it's the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applicants that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Indeed is the job site that's going to help get you the talent and help match you with the right people. And with Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post on Indeed, you're going to get quality candidates that meet your must-have requirements. Indeed makes it easy to hire great talent. According to ComScore, it's the number one job site in the world. Indeed develops 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest. Join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. You have to be out of your mind not to use it. If you're hiring and you don't use it, your company's going to fail. That's it. How about that? Do you care about do you even care about your company? I care about my company. I don't have a company, but if I did, I would care about it. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post to Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Offer valid. Go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire to claim your $75 credit. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. You need Indeed, Tim. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Holy cow, that was a long one today. I hope you forgive me.
Elliot, that was like classic, an Oasis concert. And they get to Don't Look Back in Anger, and he puts the microphone out to the crowd and they sing the chorus and on into the verse. That Indeed ad. It was legendary.
I'm just going to tell you, with the lineup we had today, I'm guessing Blue Wire needs to pay bills for that studio they built in Las Vegas. That's fine, though. It's a beautiful studio. We do love it, and we do hope to have a live event there at some point. Okay, Tim. Taka on Twitter at Takeshi_AFC asked, do you think these postponements might actually be a good thing for Arsenal? 2 Europa League group games out of the way without having a Premier League game at the weekend. Rested squad to tackle our most important month in October. Postponements. Good thing? Not good thing. Discuss.
I mean, ultimately, I think they're a bad thing because obviously you have to, in a season that's already going to be condensed, those games are going to have to be played. And that's not great. However, it is what it is, and we've got to deal with it. And that being the case, you have got to try and take the positives from it. And I do think one of the positives is exactly. Well, it's within that question, right? Because PSV, the 2 games against PSV in particular, are really clutch for this group. So actually, particularly if by Thursday we have an idea of whether we're going to play at the weekend or not, I tend to think we won't, because the game's in London, and by the sounds of it, the games in London will bite the dust, but others around the country might not. So we can put everything into that PSV game if we want to, and in fact, it's probably advisable anyway from like a loading perspective. So it, ultimately in the long term, bad, but things being as they are, it might be pretty good. Like, obviously, I don't think it had any impact on the team we picked in Zurich, because we picked that team on the understanding that we were going to play at the weekend. But having not played, we've got like a bit of a longer build up to PSV, and we're probably not going to have a game after that next weekend and onto the international break. So it's bad, but the badness is kind of reduced, I think, particularly because it's PSV. If we were playing Bodo Glimt, I think it would just be bad. But because we've got PSV, particularly at home, and we want to beat them, and they're playing today, I think we can kind of make the best of it and probably play a pretty strong team on Thursday.
Yeah, hat tip to Dapper G and 1.76 acres on Twitter, who also asked similar questions. And Paul, will stay on this for a minute, because I think it's a toss-up in part. Look, you want to play the games when you're playing well, and you want to play the games in an order that get you the most points as quickly as possible. Like, because what I mean is, I think we would have smashed Everton at home this weekend the way we're playing. Who knows how they'll be playing, what they'll look like, how we'll be playing, what we'll look like when this game gets rearranged. Who knows what absences we'll have then, or what availabilities we'll have then. There's just no way to know, obviously. Maybe now our next game is Brentford away. It's a tough game. You could drop points there. And then it's 2 weeks off until the derby. And, I think having those 3 points from Everton under your belt and being through 7 games with 21 points, that's the position we want to be in. On the flip side, to Tim's point, they have never made it a bigger prize to top the group in the Europa League than this season. You literally play one less knockout round. It is a huge advantage. And PSV are the team we have to beat. And if we do that twice, we're going to top the group easily. It also means that Thomas Partey gets to get fit. Other players get to get rest. I mean, Martinelli's been playing a ton. Saka's been playing a ton. Jesus has been playing a ton. So I see both sides of it. I still sort of lean to the idea that when you're playing well and you're in good nick, go play your league games and rack up the points. But where do you come down on this?
I don't think it's a relative advantage that this got postponed. I think there are other teams who'll be a lot happier.
Chelsea,
yeah. United,
who, by the way, aren't fixed, apparently. Lost to Sociedad on Thursday.
Yeah. But this there'll be certain teams who'll be like, oh, thank God, 2 weeks to. But we came out of pre-season rocking and rolling. We wanted momentum, game after game, knock them down, get the 3 points, at Everton, roll on to Brentford, and then you go into the North London derby. Look, you look back afterwards and you say, well, I didn't think it was going to work out this way or that way. So in the end, it'll be what it'll be. It may turn out to have been a good thing, more time on the training ground for us. Maybe we tighten the ship up. Maybe Thomas Partey's ready. Maybe Sambi gets more time in playing the lone 6. We work out our kinks. We get a little tighter and we roll on. At the end of the day, you look to yourself, tighten up your own game. It certainly, depending, I guess we'll maybe play Brentford, maybe won't. But it gives us time to plan for how we take on Spurs in the North London derby. I guess we're going to have a degree of time. Well, we're going to have lots of bloody time. Feels like more time than you need to think about the North London derby is the other problem. I much prefer to have come into it with, another 6 points, the good vibes, everything rocking and rolling, and then you take on the North London derby at home. But so I don't love it on almost any dimension. But it doesn't mean, it's not like it's a huge disadvantage. It's an advantage in some ways. It's just not as much an advantage but fortunately, it's not much of an advantage to Spurs. They've got their shit sorted out. We've mostly got our shit sorted out. It'll be what it'll be. I don't know.
Yeah, I do think that you have to be a little careful what you wish for, because whatever advantage we gain in the short term now, we may not feel it's an advantage when we're trying to make up these fixtures later. But it just depends. Are you in better position right now to tolerate the extra fixtures now, or are you going to be in better position to tolerate them later? Which
the one novel thought I had was, believe it or not, like we wanted all these Europa League group games so that the kids could play. Now that's we're not really playing the kids, but like the next Sambi could play, and unfortunately, we're throwing ourselves into the advantages of playing a stronger and stronger team in the group games. So yeah, but also to your point, it gives and it takes away.
But I think some of those players kind of are beneath the first, if everyone's fit, the first 11. But so like one of the things I think is really useful at the moment, Sambi in the number 6 role, he needs those games. Fabio Vieira, we're going to need him pretty soon if we don't already. He needs those games. Marquinhos as well, as a an option to take the load off Saka. Yeah. Like I don't think there are many like even if we were playing like our second choice 11, I don't think there'd be many like youngsters in there. I don't think that's where this squad is at the moment. It's more squad players that we might need.
But to be fair, Tim, because I said something on Twitter and you responded to it intelligently, which is a sort of a typical tactic I use, is to say something inane and then wait for smart people to say something smart in the comments, in the replies. I made the point that I think it's sort of a shame losing the game at the weekend means that we'll probably go full strength against PSV to keep the first team sharp. And that means players like Marquinhos and Vieira, who would have expected to get a start, ESR if he had been fit, right? They won't get that start. And Kedia, but to your point, PSV being the team we really need to make sure we beat twice to top this group, we probably would have gone strong anyway. So now instead
and I still think Vieira will play, for example, because Ødegaard's been, we forget that he took a pretty big knock before Old Trafford, and we kind of nursed him through that game and he didn't finish it. So, I think he's going to play. Again, Zinchenko, he's been nursing. So Tierney will play, and that will give him another opportunity to try and... Because he's got to adjust to what's being asked of him now as a left-back. So I think those guys will play. Guys we don't... I mean, Vieira maybe, but we don't consider we consider them relatively experienced senior players who just probably aren't in the absolute lock first 11 at the moment. Tomiyasu as well, he'll probably play against PSV, and that's absolutely fine, and he could probably do with the minutes, and it's not a step down, maybe even a step up. That's not, we're not weakening in that position because he's playing.
Do we feel pretty confident the weekend games will go forward? I guess the funeral's on Monday, right?
Yeah, I it sounds like the London games are in doubt. So one of the conversations they had was about some of the London teams reversing their games. That doesn't matter. And actually, I think logistically that's probably not going to be possible anyway. But obviously, we've got a London derby, so it doesn't actually matter. I don't think Brentford Arsenal will go ahead. I think all of the games outside London will go ahead, but the London ones won't.
Interesting. Paul, any thoughts?
No.
That was really helpful with the sneeze that I was trying to sneak in. You didn't.
I have a very bad feeling.
That was like a counterattack, and I'm out of position, and I just need you to kind of recover the position, and you didn't. Okay, look, let's move on.
It was a bloody hospital pass. I wanted to watch your dramatic you could do a slow motion video of that and see you catching it in your hands. So I didn't want to miss anything.
That was Ramsdale rolling it out to Xhaka's weaker foot with his facing his golden goal. Let's do one, Tim, that is that's going to piss people off. I like the questions that there's no answer to this question that won't have people coming back to us being, I can't believe you said the best. Those are the best. So Gunnar Way, who chose violence, says, who has the higher ceiling between Saka and Martinelli? He woke up and chose violence, and I'm forcing you.
Yeah, I'm going to take some letters out of that name. That's Go Away, not Gunnar Away. So I still think it's Saka, but I wouldn't massively. I think the thing is, well, actually, no. So the question is who has a higher ceiling, right? It's not necessarily who's going to realise that ceiling. So I guess what I'd say is Martinelli, but I think it's more likely that Saka will realise his ceiling. Martinelli has some of the attributes and the abilities to be right up there as one of the best players in the world. I mean, so does Saka. But I think because of the potential end product of a player like Martinelli, I think he potentially has the higher ceiling, but I'm less sure he will absolutely go there, if you know what I mean. Which is not even to say I think it would be a failure of potential. It's just I've got a bit of a hunch that he could go to top 5 player in the world level. I'm not necessarily sure he'll get there, whereas Saka, I think Saka is going to get to his ceiling unless injuries or whatever. So, I guess to answer the question boldly, I'd say Martinelli.
Yeah. Paul, why don't you answer? And then I have a thought about this that might try to encapsulate what Tim has just said using hand gestures.
Okay. So you need to cough or sneeze, or...
No.
I really do want to hear my opinion on this one.
In this instance, I would like you to talk for longer than the time it takes me to sneeze. Yes.
I think it's absolutely fantastic and slightly amazing that we can have this debate and it's not obvious what the answer is. Martinelli's done amazing from where we weren't quite sure whether he was going to be a real factor at Arsenal or not. Obviously, when he first came in, we thought he looked like the next big thing, and then reality settles in and needs to find his way in the system, and Arteta doesn't play him for a little bit because he wants him to learn to think about football in different ways. And then he comes on and he plays well, and he looks promising, but he doesn't look stratospheric at that point. And this season, he out of the traps, going like the clappers. And it's a head scratcher. I don't know what the answer to it is, but the one thing I would always say about Martinelli is, we all love Saka, and he's brilliant. And so it's not really a question on his side. The question's really on the Martinelli side. But the fact that he has end product, that he's a shot monster, even the last game, Europa League, I think he got 5 shots. The best of the rest was 3-4. No big deal, but he's a shot monster. He'll get in there. He's on. He can curl them in. He's aggressive. He's physical. As long as he doesn't get injuries that slow him down, because the physicality is such a big part of his game. I think he's a really good shot at giving us the thing teams always want the most, which is goals and that contribution. That's how he gets ahead of Saka. But the answer is it's really fucking close between the two of them at this point in terms of where they could achieve, which is, that's the correct answer, I think. I don't know how you can really parse them at this point, and what massive credit that is to both of them, and certainly to Martinelli, because he's the guy who's come with the late rush to put himself right neck and neck. Wonderfully, they play right and left on the pitch, right? So there's no sense, and they're very flexible. What's more, Saka can play across at least 3 positions, and Martinelli can probably play across 3 slightly different positions. It's just fantastic.
There's this weird phenomenon of needing to decide which player is better than another player, even within your own team, when there is absolutely no need to do it. It's a weird phenomenon. I get it, right? Comparison is just a thing we do, evaluating who is better than whom. And so that's why Twitter is just an absolute mess of whenever anybody tweets anything from a big account, the replies are all Pessi is finished. Pinaldo is in the mud. I mean, I don't understand it, but it's a thing.
The one thing I'd say against that, Elliot, is players do it all the time. I know we're not the players and
everybody
we don't have
does
to live
it,
in
sure.
this, but like the players are fucking obsessed by who's better.
Oh yeah,
they
need
braggadocio, the kind of it's almost like the warrior like these are warriors. They're like back to the Greek gods, Troy, like all those guys did was brag all the time. And that brings out the performance in them. So, like,
if you don't have
we
the
get
mentality,
sucked into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Paul, if you don't have the mentality to want to be better than all the other players, you won't make it.
Yeah.
As a
Martinelli
pro, right?
wants to be better than Saka. Saka wants to be the man in this team. He mightn't want it quite today but like he wants to be the man. Every player who has that ability wants to be the man.
But that competition doesn't have to be toxic, right? It can be healthy and productive.
Yeah.
I think the way I wanted to express this with hand gestures is, have you ever seen a distribution chart? And it distributes the probability of something. Mm-hmm. And so it starts with a little flat area, and then it gets thicker in the middle, and then it curves back down and gets thicker at the end. And the way I would describe the Saka Martinelli thing using that chart is sort of what Tim was saying. I think the thickest part of Saka's distribution probability is further out on the good player x-axis than Martinelli's. In other words, I think more of the outcomes of Saka are really good player than Martinelli's. But I think Martinelli has the longer tail. In other words, I think at the 90th percent outcome, at the 95th percent outcome, at the 99th percent outcome, Martinelli is the better player. At the 50th percent outcome, Saka is the better player, if that makes sense. And the reason I say that firstly is in football, the players that really are considered the best do one thing more than anybody else, and that's score goals. There is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that at the highest probability, Martinelli is probably more of a goal scorer than Saka. I just think the way he strikes the ball, his instinct to strike the ball, the number of shots he takes, I just think he's going to be a long-term the better goal scorer. I think Saka has a lot in his game that will serve him well, whether he's scoring goals or not. You could see it for England, right? Why does Saka start every game? He just does so many things well. He's attentive defensively. He can beat a man off the dribble at the midway line. He can serve in the perfect cross from the top of the box. He can beat a man in the box and cut it back. He can score on his left foot. He's got it all. Martinelli, I don't think is clean. He still looks at his feet too much when he dribbles, right? He runs around a lot, which is good, but sometimes, as we saw against United, can switch off. But when you're in that final third and the ball's going to fall to somebody to score, I mean, the goal that's taken away from him against United, that is a goal that I don't think Saka scores, and that is through no discredit to Saka. That is the kind of goal that only a few players score. First touch, clean, on the run, strike it with your weaker foot across the keeper into the corner. Like, that's as good as it gets. So Tim, do you think that's fair that, like, from an all-around standpoint, you want a player like Saka in your team, but when it comes to scoring goals, there's one player of the two that I think is going to get more of them long-term. And I realize, by the way, that hasn't been the case yet, but I think over time we're going to see it. And that's Martinelli for me.
Yeah, definitely. One's like your structure, technical, tactical player. Like you said, like Saka wouldn't score that Martinelli goal. You'd probably say on the flip side that Martinelli wouldn't play the through ball that Saka plays for him.
Yep.
But yeah, like if you're looking, this is going to be a crap analogy. Sorry. If you're looking to set the table, you want Saka. But if you want someone to eat off it, probably Martinelli.
Mm-hmm. Well said. All right, let me stay with you for a second. We're going to finish up with a transfer window question because hashtag clicks. Johannes Jordal at Johannes Jordal on Twitter says, great work as always, gents, which is always a good way to get noticed in the questions. If we were to sign a backup for Partey in January, would you prefer who would you prefer out of Douglas Luiz, Danilo, and Tielemans? Or do you think we wait for the summer and go bigger in terms of transfer fee and quality? Do you think you don't have to stick to those three, but essentially is a Partey backup still on the agenda, and do you think it'll happen in January? And if you want to pick one of those three, please feel free.
I'm not sure it will be, because El Neni should be back by January. I know it's like long term, but around January, I think at the moment is when he's supposed to be back. What
I can hear a lot of listeners muttering to themselves, "Oh, well, that fixes everything."
Well, yeah. So like, I'm less enamored by trying to do the Douglas Luiz thing again. I am going to pick one of those players. I'd really like Danilo. Danilo is a really
surprise, Tim.
Yeah, well, he's a talent. He really is, and I think the reason I'd like to do that is because if you buy him in January, like I gather it was difficult to buy him in the summer just because Palmeiras are going for the league, they're going for the Copa Libertadores. They didn't want to lose him at the moment. In January, like that's the end of the Brazilian season. The season ends in December. Well, it's slightly disrupted by the World Cup, but it'll be finished by then. So Brazilian clubs generally are much more amenable to selling in January. And I think what you get if you go and get Danilo is you get, at the moment, he'd be party backup, but with a very good chance that in a year, 18 months, whatever, that he takes over from him. And look, ultimately, a big you've got to see that the club are concerned about Partey's injury issues, and Arteta kind of said it right when he was trying to get Douglas Luiz. He said, like, because Partey, like on the face of it, is meant to be back quite soon. Like it's only like a 3-week injury on its own. And I don't think they'd have tried to spend 25 million on Douglas Luiz if they just thought, oh, well, we've only got to play Sambi for 2 or 3 Premier League games there. Like, it's clearly because they're thinking, okay, either we need like the long-term Partey replacement, that's got to go closer to the front of the queue, or his backup has to be quite a bit better. No disrespect to El Neni, but his backup has to be closer to his level because he's going to be used a lot. A bit like the Zinchenko signing, right? It's like, right, Tin is injured all the time, so we can't have the gap like we had to Tavares. Yep. We can't have potential. We need someone there. So I'd like to see us go for someone like Danilo, but you can see the cogs whirring in Arteta's head, and he wasn't trying to spend 25 million, I think, on the next El Neni. So much, or I think Douglas Luiz would have been like the long-term backup, but I think it was this guy's going to get a lot of football, Partey's backup. So either you want Partey's backup to be like that Zinchenko level, or you want him to be someone who in a year or two can really take that role over, which is why I'd like to see us go for Danilo and not Tielemans. And
yeah. Football changes so fast, right? And Paul, like, Liverpool are not looking great right now.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
their season doesn't go so well. And maybe Jurgen Klopp says, you know what? I took the project as far as I can. He moves on. Or, maybe not. But the point is, like, suddenly is Jude Bellingham sure he wants to commit his future to a Liverpool that's restarting? Does he want to come to a place that has a club that maybe just finished second and is on the up with a lot of young English players that he probably is quite friendly with, like Saka and Ben White and Aaron Ramsdale? Right? And Emile Smith-Rowe. It is interesting how this changes. And I think the club has shown...
How's his Portuguese?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, that's really the criteria. Well, I think the club showed also last January. They are fully prepared to not buy in January, even when everything's on the line. Now, maybe that's a mistake, and it may well be. I think World Cup injuries and World Cup changes will impact what happens in January. But you look at some of the rewards that you get for waiting for the summer. Gabriel Jesus, for example, Zinchenko, for example, couldn't have gotten them from City mid-season. And you really have to weigh that against what you're doing in January. So what do you think? Are we going to go for a Partey replacement? Is January going to be a window where we strengthen? How do you feel about that? Because I do think the World Cup is going to influence that a lot, but I'm not convinced that our strategy is built around January that much, frankly.
Yeah, I don't think it's knowable. I think it depends. Like, there's 2 big factors here, maybe 3. Does Partey go on a run where he stays fit? Feels a little unlikely, especially with the World Cup. But if he does, we don't. Does Sambi begin to step up? And do we adapt a little bit how we play to cover the fact that Sambi off the ball is never going to be Partey in terms of the physical aspects of his game? And does that work well? In which case, no, I think we probably stick with what we've got. unless the right guy's available. Or does El Neni play a blinder and between him and Sambi we're good enough? What do I think will play out? If the player's available, we should go for him in January, and if he's not, we shouldn't. And unless Sambi stinks the place up, I know some people think he maybe already is. I think that's incredibly harsh, but we won't go into the whole Sambi thing. I think Sambi's smart enough to do a good enough job, and we'll give him a little extra cover that we'll see it through to the summer. But if we see that the manager doesn't trust Sambi after a few games, then yeah, we're going to have to do something in January, because you can't. A phrase of yours I like, Elliot, and there's very few phrases of yours I like.
Very rare. Mm-hmm.
You can't throw seasons away, and things start going sour, mildly toxic, if players don't have the hope of ambition, and we can't throw this season away. We can't say, oh, well, we'll go again next summer. No. You got to build next summer. You can't get a redo and think you're back where you were. Everybody's a year further behind in their ambitions.
I don't think the players, I don't think the fans, I don't think anybody would forgive the club if it looks like something is on this season and it's clear what's needed to ensure it, and we don't do what's necessary. Because I have to admit, I came on this podcast and I defended what we did last January, because I said, don't screw up this beautiful project buying someone you don't really want. If there's someone you really want that you're going to get in January, and oh, by the way, we did get Gabriel Jesus, and I wouldn't trade that. But it is pretty clear that had we done I don't know if we could have gotten Bruno Guimaraes. I don't know. I thought he wanted to come. If we had gotten him, I am convinced we finished top 4 last season. I'm convinced we have more money this summer. I'm convinced with Champions League, we get Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko, but maybe there's another. At the time, I will raise my hand and admit I was not screaming for that, but that thought is in my mind. I don't think there will be a lot of forgiveness if we don't do everything possible to protect this beautiful season we're building. Now, it may be the case that Sambi continues to play more, plays well, gets better, looks amazing, that Partey is fit and available, that the needs don't look the same in January. Could be the case that everybody breaks their ankle in the World Cup and we finish 12th. It's a little too early to know. I'm going to hope that I didn't just breathe the last thing into life.
The thing that's different on this is we have the time to plan. Like, we know in early September that this is a binary situation, so you plan. You assume you're going to need a guy in January. That wasn't really the situation with the striker thing. Like, we thought we were going to keep Aubameyang. You can see it in All or Nothing. They didn't think they had an option to get him out. They thought he was going to be around.
Yeah, they wanted to.
Yeah. And it all happened late, and it was all evolving. Will we, won't we? This is different. So the level of tolerance for getting it wrong here will be very low. And I think it's different to last year, because last year they didn't really think we were ready for Champions League. That was a kind of a mirage. Like, you can debate but like this year, it's like they said last year would have been a year early, which is great. This is the year, and the players, like even if we miss out either way, there has to be the growth, development, ambition. You can't park it for a year, regardless of whether you make top 4 or not. The players, like Gabriel Jesus, is not here to take a gap year before we get serious again.
No, I hear you. Yeah, Tim, final thoughts on that?
Yeah, Paul said pretty much what I was going to say, actually, which is like last year, no one really expected us to finish in the top 4 or even really fight for it that much. I think a lot of us...
Or the Spanish Inquisition, for the record.
Yeah, I think a lot of us were kind of going, 6, because we'd finished 8th, right? So even 5th was like, well, okay, that's progress. Like, 5th isn't going to be progress this year, even if it is by all the metrics. And, we're just it's not going to... no one's going to accept that that's progress. So, yeah, I think Paul's 100% right. There's more tolerance in January, even if you think it's a mistake. I think a lot of people are like, it was probably a mistake, but I get it, kind of thing. Yeah, that wouldn't happen this year. Definitely not. It would be seen as repeating an error.
Yeah, well said. All right, well, on that happy note, let's leave it there. Let's remember, most important of all, We are top of the league. Say we are top of the league. Okay, so Clive will be back on a future episode, obviously. As will Scott. If you haven't checked it out over on Patreon, there's something called Stats Guy and Civilian with Scott and Paul. It is a fantastic new piece of content. We have a Loney watch with Kaya Kainak coming Tuesday for patrons. And just lots more fun stuff to get us through the period without football, but we'll have the football back on Thursday. So we'll have the instant reaction then. We'll have our regular pod out on Friday. So if you're saying, by the way, if you've been looking for the main pod on Thursdays, with us playing Thursday, it doesn't seem to make sense to put a main pod out just hours before we're going to play. So those are going to be Friday while there are Thursday midweek games. They will revert to Thursday on the weeks where we don't have midweek games. Hopefully that has all made sense. But the good news is by now, surely none of you are listening, so you don't know any of this information. Paul's on Twitter, Pause My Pants. Thanks, Pause.
Woohoo!
Tim's on Twitter, Roberto. Thank you, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
My name is Elliot Smith, Blackman, Twitter, Yankee Gunner. We love you. And we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, PSV no.